My compliments to General Chandele. The conference, to my mind, couldn't have been more aptly timed. Uh, all of us in industry look at those green shoots, and from those green shoots, we build our business models, and from those business models, we try and convert something which is more real. While we talk in this conference, there's to my mind, very large amount of these green shoots now getting into those uh, small little plants, and I'm sure big things will happen in this country, especially in this domain, because this is something, to my mind, where the Indian industry has a very, very major role, and fundamentally, the security perspective, which possibly has to remain within the country, has an extremely important dimension, which essentially makes a difference to all of us in industry, and that's exactly where all of us in industry have been looking at some of these new sectors and segments the way we would like to build our business models around. When we talk, last 2 years have been unprecedented. There's been tactical communication systems creating a fail-safe mobile network on the move, not just a mobile, data, voice, video, all the data fusion, all what we keep hearing through multi-sensors, and then have an integrated picture. So on one side there's multiple of those sensors, be it a UAV, be it a satellite, be it an aircraft that was flying. On the other side could be on the coastal side, right from the unique identification for every floating platform down to on the naval coastal surveillance across agencies. And when we really look at that now being brought specifically into an analytically strong domain to now put it in to a given domain or given geographical area, and that's where the GIS now starts merging overall with this multiple data inputs on the intelligence side, and then creates something which needs certain fundamentals in the form of the network which I talked about, the integration which runs across platforms in the form of whether a naval vessel, what kind of integration at right at the strategic level as well as at the command level, or for that matter the battlefield management, what we really talk about. So while this is all happening in the country, to my mind, fundamentally, the most important part today is what are those major indicators for all of us to move on. And those indicators today are very, very important. While the country always depended on imports in a large sense, and a lot of our military wear remained and continued to be imported, last few years probably made a difference, starting with what earlier the speakers talked about, right, starting from Kargil, from Kelkar committee, varieties of things happened. We don't believe in industry the pace was anything which all of us would have loved at, but notwithstanding that pace, there has been a definite positive and forward movement. No board, I'm sure, is satisfied with what happened, but let's look forward to something which genuinely now starts taking, assuming pace, starts moving forward. While this has been happening, we also have seen major make programs which have come through, and the two which I talked about, and both relating to the seminar topic what we are talking today, essentially are going to be revolutionizing this industry when we move forward. What does some of these things do to a business model, to an industry? This is exactly where we now start seeing that yes, notwithstanding what happened in terms of slowness of decision making on the government, there have been some very fundamental, irreversible part which has gone in saying it shall now be anything and everything on the Indian focus. The Buy Indian now becomes the number one criteria. As what we just saw in the latest policies. To my mind, what we really need today is genuine implementation of what policies we have in place rather than newer and newer policies and the innovation of those policies. Every 1 year if we keep innovating policy, to my mind, we will have too many policies in place without any implementation genuinely happening, and that's exactly where the policy implementation takes to my mind a key. And obviously, while we talk of that implementation, to convert those fundamental intents of those policies to really make the industry very, very powerful, through that the armed forces genuinely start deriving some of those strengths. And what Dr. Apte talked about is the skill. Where is the skill today? The skill is in the IT, skill is in the industry, skill is in paying off that kind of skill, scaling up and bringing bigger and bigger volumes out of it. And that's essentially the analytics is the aspect, to my mind, the industry can genuinely get in while building the hardware and the overall networks. The access and the security, which becomes yet another major dimension, and then the overall, let's say, net centricity, the way we define, to be defined. Fundamentally, to my mind, we are all talking of those different elements of these. These different elements need genuinely to be put into that one single overall big picture, and that overall big picture, through the policy what we see, hopefully the new government which keeps talking of speed and pace, hopefully genuinely that's something what we've been looking forward to. If I really look at some of those big programs on the battlefield management, which essentially have today been kicked off, I see very clearly that we genuinely are looking at very, very sizable situational awareness coming in. Data fusion today, the indigenous technologies which are available, they're there in place, security layers again in place. I see very clearly the networks are getting in place. Now, what it really needs is genuine hand-holding, and that's, to my mind, what the first two speakers really talked about. We can't really now start looking at building this kind of, in a way, let me use the 3 to 4 decade old word, the military-industrial complex. If we genuinely look at that integration of that military-industrial complex to be physically brought in under one single domain, then it requires that relationship of trust. The relationship of trust, to my mind, is far too lacking. A private sector is continued and continues to be seen. People who probably need to be at bay, while the public sector becomes fundamentally someone who would do no wrong. What we saw in last couple of years is exactly the opposite. We really did not see what was ought to be right, and we actually see people who were actually at bay delivering far more. While this has actually happened, there is a complete mindset change, which obviously, to my mind, people from industry as well as the decision makers are driving and would get driven far more to make this whole thing really feasible. These military industrial complexes, if we really have to believe when we say that 70% import content, which today hopefully has come to 65, but if it is genuinely to go to below 30 over that defined kind of a period, which is the national vision, then essentially that relationship of trust is an absolute necessity, absolute must. There would have to be mechanisms found. PPP is very, very relevant in infra. When I come from an organization like Larsen Toubro, there are hundreds of PPPs we've been used to doing. When we start doing that, we start very loose consortium. Today, the Defense Ministry actually does not recognize a loose consortium. The speed with which things can happen in consortiums versus something else, to my mind, needs to be seen. And the government has sound ways of doing those things. Government has sound ways of doing. And let me tell you, about 15 years back, when we were building a first tollway, a new road, the tollway and a new road was built not at L1. It was L1T1. Even in building road, there's enough technology, and if that technology was harnessed, there's something far more to happen. So obviously, when we actually are talking of building an overall ecosystem, let me use that word, an ecosystem would actually get driven. Fundamental knowledge and technologies will be available in academics. It is available in industry. Adaptation of that to make it rugged, make it accessible, controllable, and the overall networks built, to my mind, is all available. All these pieces, as I said, fundamentally need to be put together, and as they actually start happening, to my mind, there would be that day we can look forward to where this military industrial complex is, and rather than running from one program to another program every year, getting on to something different, would genuinely stop. And that's where the MAKE program, what I really talked about, a 40,000, 50,000 crore program, obviously mean a decade roll up ahead, and a decade roll up ahead obviously would mean a far higher level of commitment, which will start being seen both ways, from industry as well as from the Ministry of Defence. As I see the balance day today and tomorrow, there will be far more discussion on some of these aspects, the actual technology blocks and the elements which we are really going to be seeing. I wish the conference a very, very serious debate and discussions, and probably some of the recommendations that come out of it for implementation, either for the ministry or for that matter for the chambers to actually put it forward to the government and take it up. I'm sure the conference organizers will keep track of that. Thank you very much. All the best.